Okay, good afternoon. This is day 106 of making day or thought in the life of schizophrenic Dominic. I believe that I experienced schizophrenia. I've been diagnosed with schizoid affective disorder, but I don't believe I am diseased or crazy. I believe it is a reality to be experienced. In day 17 of these videos, I describe why I call myself a schizophrenic rather than targeted individual. In day 45, I explain why I make these videos in the first place in a 3-minute intro, and then there's the rest of the video on that day's topics. I've written a book on medium.com. I submit the chapters there with regards to regards to my thought processes, which could have got me targeted for schizophrenic affliction or the targeting individual program that people talk about. And it also talks about research that I have done with regards to voice hearing and stalking in the public and things of that nature. And I make little statements here, and I read little things out of books to give some idea about synchronicity and feedback that I get through time and just in general from the government or the public. Okay, so, all right. In my book that I was reading today, titled Not So Misfit Odyssey. It's going over Dehesu, which is the the land. I guess it's the place that all the animals are living, and then it is suffering from disease and oak trees, and uh, the bulls have just been rounded up, and Juanito the pig is talking with Conejo, and Conejo is gathering acorns for the little ones. And in reading this today, it made me think about, it was talking about how like the land was diseased or something, and that it was the trees were suffering from disease or whatever, and that it was not the same as it had used to be. And I couldn't help but think of my own health, or just in general about our health as we grow older, that we are at the risk of getting disease or we get viruses or something. I just got over that flu virus. And I was thinking, like, man, it's like the never-ending battle to retain your youth as you get older to try to stay in good health and stuff. And so I'm trying to do that, and uh, it made me think about, my book that I'm reading, Becoming Earth, and how we are Earth. The the Earth is us, and uh, you got to take care of the Earth. You got to take care of yourself, and just really health and equilibrium on all levels is something that kind of links up when you get down into it. So, all right, all right, and in my other book, it's the Simulated Universe. It talks about uh, a character in one of David Philip K. Dick's books called Ragle Gumm. Uh, Gumman, Gumman, I think his name is, and the story of this Ragle Gumm was like it sounds a lot like schizophrenia. He he was saying that he was being like kind of monitored by a group of people, and he could predict what was going on with regards to, or he was in a simulated universe or whatever. He was waking up from he realized that he was in some sort of artificial reality where he was being monitored, and he could predict where the next nuclear strike was going to go because the world was at nuclear war. And he had an ability in his brain to predict where the nuclear strikes were going to happen. And it sounded a lot to me like schizophrenia. With, I just explained that I had that thought process with regards to Pakistan and India, and thank God they did not go further and escalate that situation any further. And so there's been a ceasefire. So Uh, yeah. So, anyways, so I thought it's kind of interesting that Philip K. Dick put this kind of schizophrenic type character in his book, and so I talk about the schizophrenic reality here. So, yeah. In Homo Deus, it talks about the animistic cosmos to human cosmos to theist cosmos, like the switch from animistic cosmos to theist cosmos. And in the book, it was talking about how uh, humans stopped conversing or convening with animals, and they started being told that they were supposed to dominate animals, and they were supposed to dominate the earth as the most centered species that was at the center of attention and the center of everything and the center of the universe, basically. And so, yeah, so uh, I have I've learned about this previously before, but I was just reading about that in Harari's book, and so it would be interesting to see if we could, as we move forward with this technology to decode brains and stuff, if we could actually return to the Garden of Eden time or whatever. Like, if you don't think non-linear, if you don't think linearly in time, that maybe we could go back to being able to converse with animals, or the previous mythologies, the animistic cosmos or whatever. And so now we have the ability to decode brains and stuff. And so I guess we're gonna learn what animals are thinking. We could maybe learn their language if we get an AI involved, and potentially we could start figuring these things out or whatever. In some, I don't know, in the human terms or whatever. So that'll be interesting if we keep going that way. All right, so that's what I thought about that. In my listening to classical music today, I was listening to KUSC, and it was discussing how KUSC was going to lose $1 million in federal funding due to the Trump administration's cuts, and that was really sad to me. And uh, I really like KUSC because nobody, like they said on the thing today, they said nobody's yelling at each other. No, there's no controversy. There's no terrible news or some or anything like that. It's just classical music. It's just music all the time. There's no commercials. No one's selling you stuff. Well, they sell you like beanies or whatever to drive, but nothing. It's very nice, and it's just a very nice station, and the music is really incredible. And I came across this a few years ago in my car, and when I was just driving around, maybe a long time ago, but I used to go around the station, and then I'd stop on the classical station, and I didn't think much of it when I was listening to it before, but now that I listen to it, I start donating to the station and stuff like that. So, all right, I was going to talk about a synchronicity that happened in my Olajuwon book and Abraham Lincoln book. So Olajuwon is an African basketball player. If you don't know, he was a Hall of Fame player, and he came from Nigeria, and that's what I talk about in my book, as I talk about it here. And he was like the greatest center of all time, in my opinion. And uh, in the book, it talks about when he's going back and forth between handball and basketball. In one of the games, he won a last second shot against a team, and there was a stand-in coach that took over the game because one of the coaches couldn't be there. His main coach couldn't be there. And the stand-in coach's name was Papa Jam. And I read that today. It was on page 41 of the book or whatever. And so then I set that down, and then I realized, oh, that's interesting, because just a few minutes earlier, I had read in my Lincoln book about a ship, a schooner ship called the Pearl, and there was this affair in the 1840s or whatever with regards to 70 African slaves coming up the, I guess, coming up the coast, running away and trying to become free from the South, and they were captured in the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., and they were imprisoned. And this created a huge controversy because there were abolitionists that didn't want the District of Columbia to be involved in imprisoning African slaves, and they thought it was terrible. And Lincoln was around at this time, and so that's why he's in his book about him. But anyways, that was called The Pearl, and I was reading. Then a few minutes later, I read about a Papa Jam. So I happened to scroll earlier to yesterday, and people were talking about Pearl Jam and playing music of Pearl Jam and stuff. And so I was like, that's a really crazy synchronicity because I just happened to come across Pearl Jam yesterday and a couple times. And then today I'm learning about the Pearl incident in the Lincoln book, and there's a Papa Jam. So there may somebody saying something about Pearl Jam right now. And yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and I don't know what the synchronicity is about. I don't know if it's making me think about something about Pearl Jam or uh, what that means, but I can't really find any meaning to it. But it's just an interesting thing, and so it makes you wonder. I started thinking, like, is there some sort of time travel or something, or AI time travel or something? That's what I think sometimes when I read these things or whatever. So yeah, so something going on with that. In my book on the toxic achievement culture in America, it talks about high school students who go to elite high schools, and they're really smart kids, and they think they're kind of dumb, or they don't think that they're achieving much because they get like a B plus in a class and all the other kids are getting A pluses, and it's hyper competitive. And this hyper competitive, this swarming to locations where people are in a hyper competitive mode, and they're trying to get ahead and get into the elite schools and stuff. It leaves people who are very capable people of thinking they're not very capable. It gives them an outsized idea that they're not capable or whatever. And so this just gets into, to me, when I read something like this, it gets into like the idea of the competition based world order. And for instance, in this video or whatever, if I were to compare myself to other people, it's shitty. But it's interesting to me, and it's documentation of a reality, and some of the stuff is useful information for other people to hear or digest or think about. And so I go for it, like that, and it makes little videos. It gives me something to do, but it's just like that's why I used to like when I was living in a city or whatever, I used to like to go to coffee shops where they have like spoken word nights and stuff like that and stuff. So I didn't do it too often, but I would go in, and I like those spoken words because people just get up and they say whatever they want to say or whatever, and it's there's no there's no judgment or whatever about like well, there's a little bit, but not really. there there's no judgment about like the quality or whatever. It's just like somebody's saying something that's just like they want to read a poem or they want to share something, or and so yeah. All right, so I was gonna get into something about how life happens on many different scales, but I'll do that in the next is about my book called Becoming Earth. Going to San Diego in a couple days, so I'll probably take a couple days off. So hope everyone has a good weekend. It's my sister's birthday. I won't say how old she is, but we're going to San Diego. We're going to see Ella and Colin and Kiana. And all right, so thank you so much. Goodbye.